Welcome, bienvenidos, Juanin, to the University of Maryland School of Public Policy Commencement Exercises for 2015. I'm Robert Orr, I'm the Dean of the Maryland School of Public Policy, and I am delighted to share with you the excitement and pride that comes with this remarkable day. This is a celebration of our amazing students who are about to graduate. Their intelligence, their hard work, their sacrifice to get to this day. It is also a celebration of public service. These candidates before you are prepared to serve the public good. There is no higher calling nor more noble endeavor. We are very excited about the challenges and opportunities and the success that we know lies ahead for these amazing graduates. They will, quite literally, change the world. These graduates don't think small. And just looking at some of the faces here that I have had the pleasure to interact with through this year, I guarantee you they don't think small. During their time here at Maryland, they have gone after the big issues of the day: eradicating poverty, not lowering poverty, eradicating poverty, stopping climate change, ending wars, making discrimination in all its forms a thing of the past, providing prosperity, education, and health for all. And that was just before lunch. But these amazing individuals we celebrate today don't just dream big, they deliver. At commencement, it is often said that students go forth into the world as if they are coming from an ivory tower and going forth from this pristine place into the big, wide, real world. In fact, our students are already in the real world. They came with experience. They have done projects for clients in project courses, internships, applied research, and service projects. They are not just starting a career when they leave here, they are deepening it, and with that, their impact on the world. When I was in India in February, I was meeting a major CEO and philanthropist. We had no sooner sat down than he said, "You are from Maryland. Your students are extraordinary." And I thought I had poor briefing materials because I didn't realize, I thought maybe his son or daughter is one of our students. No, in fact, we had a class of our students that had been in India in the month of January, the month before, who had been consulting with 3 different nonprofits in India and helped them to make big organizational changes. And the work that they did had already shaken through to the top levels of Indian society. So I didn't need to pitch our school, our students already had. And last week, the Secretary General of the United Nations came here to the campus to have a conversation with some of our students. He was not only impressed by the quality and the discourse with them, but as we walked out, he said, "I feel totally energized talking with these students. They're so smart and so committed." They exude that in even a short discussion, so they're already having an impact on the highest levels. Graduates, all this pomp and circumstance today is for you. But it is also for your families, and the woohoo, thank you. They too have worked hard to make this possible, and they have sacrificed a lot. So I would like our graduates to stand and give your families and friends a standing ovation. That's great. I heard a few more woohoos. We're getting in the spirit here. Finally, before we proceed with the ceremony, let me pass on just a few words of deanly advice. Yesterday at the campus-wide ceremony, there were a group of Golden Terps from the class of 1965. 50 years graduated. Think about what the world will look like when you all come back as golden policy terps in the year 2065. Sounds a little bit crazy. It's that far away. And yet, that is the world you are going to traverse in these coming years. Think about your careers and what you will do going forth as if you're thinking about 2065, but act now. Here at the School of Public Policy, you have all crossed many borders. You've crossed national borders, state borders, local borders, but also disciplines, sectors, and fields. You are natural-born border crossers. I encourage you to specialize in border crossing in the future. And lastly, graduates, resist the stultifying incrementalism of policy processes. Be bold, push things further and faster. We need you to be the drivers of change. Each year, the classmates select one classmate to give some remarks to the graduating class, and this year's graduates have selected Jordan Harriman. This morning, Jordan will receive a master's degree in public policy with a specialization in international security and economic policy. Most of our students come from around the world, around the country. Jordan hails from Skaggsville, Maryland, close to home. He didn't get lost coming here today, I'm glad to see. Jordan graduated from the University of Maryland, College Park, with a bachelor's degree in English literature. He obtained a job at the U.S. Capitol during the era of budget face-offs and deficit debates. And in that period, he developed a very strong interest in economic policy. That led him to return to our school to study a master's degree. During his studies, Jordan was able to see new parts of the world and meet influential trade and economic policymakers in Washington, D.C. In addition to Jordan, along with Amy Fisher, who is also graduating today, co-led a very active and remarkable Policy Student Government Association. I would like to thank you both for your incredible leadership throughout the year. Jordan, the microphone is yours.
Thank you, Dean Norm. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm honored to have been selected to speak before you all today. You know, when one is offered the chance to make a speech, I think it's only natural to look to the giants of oratory for inspiration. And who better to inspire nascent policy students than American presidents, some of whom have been our most eloquent speakers? I thought perhaps maybe I should invoke President Lincoln's solemn defense of democracy at Gettysburg, when he asked the people to ensure that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. Or perhaps I could echo President Kennedy's call to public service and ask what you can do for your country. But the words that have struck with me the most have belonged to President Thomas J. Whitmore, who, in the classic American movie, Independence Day, in the summer of 1996, called on the world to declare, "We will not go quietly into the night. We will not vanish without a fight. We will survive. We will live on." Today, we celebrate our Independence Day. So congratulations, my fellow class of 2015 graduates. We do celebrate our Independence Day, and we go out into the world now to utilize the skills that we've acquired and tackle the problems before us. But, of course, the real world's problems are not as obvious and as patent as a band of cinematic aliens. We know this. As we go out to the world, the problems that we face will be very real and very difficult. The impact on humanity and society will be no less dire. They are hard to confront and even harder to solve. The effects of global warming will grow worse in the next century. The poorest and most vulnerable of the world's populations will be impacted most of all. The plight of Syrians, the Malaysian Rohingya, Northern African migrants, and others who are fleeing from civil conflict, they will continue on unabated. Within American borders, too many inner-city residents and others suffer from systemic injustices. To solve these complicated and diverse set of problems will require cooperation, dedication, and persistence. But fortunately, I can't imagine a finer room of intelligent, motivated, passionate people ready to do their best to solve these problems. I've been proud of my time here to meet a variety of students whom I can call colleagues and friends. Much of my education here has not just been in the classroom, but in listening to the advice and experiences of my fellow students. These students are not only committed around the classroom and around College Park, but they bring their commitment to service and social justice beyond, whether they're marching for criminal justice reform in Baltimore, fighting for long overdue gay and lesbian rights, or volunteering at locations around Washington, D.C. While I am honored to be here on stage before you, I represent just a tiny piece of the energy, knowledge, and enthusiasm of this incredible student body. Of course, in order to solve the issues we care passionately about, we need tools and inspiration from experts and mentors. And we have this school to thank for providing such mentors in our faculty, renowned practitioners, compassionate philosophers, and wise academics who have each in their way provided us with essential knowledge and support. I know many of my classmates have formed close bonds with the professors in their specializations, and I myself am grateful to a slew of professors who have provided me with sources of support and mentorship, whether it was here in College Park or on a class trip last year to Morocco. So to those professors, Professors Schwab and Dessler, Professors Gilmore and Crocker, amongst many others, I thank you for your support, and we thank you as well. The efforts of our student body and our faculty are limited without effective leadership, so I want to thank Dinor as well and echo my thanks to the whole PSGA leadership team for the leadership that they've shown this year. There have been many initiatives and connections made this year, which I think will strengthen the School of Public Policy into the future. Well, I based the beginning of this speech around a fictional American president calling on the planet to fight aliens. So I thought maybe I should end with something a little bit more humble and a little bit more dignified. So in order to do that, I've chosen a quote from one of our most important founding fathers, a relatively hidden quote, but I think the simplicity and honesty of it makes it worthy for a commencement. John Adams once said, "You will ever remember that all the end of study is to make yourself a good person and a useful citizen." No doubt if President Adams could survey this room, he would agree that the good and the usefulness which this student body already possesses in great sums will be magnified by our studies and what we do in this world with our careers. So, I invite you all, let us go forth and continue to be ever good people and useful citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, Jordan, for that high-minded finish. I was sitting there thinking, wait a minute, if this is their Independence Day, from whom are they getting independence? Uh-oh. So the fact that we were just compared to aliens, I'm not going to take personally, Jordan. But thank you. Today, we also have a joy of hearing from one of our faculty members. Every year, just as the students choose a student from whom they want to hear an address, every year they also choose a faculty member. This year, the students selected Professor Elizabeth Duke. Soon after earning her PhD in political science from George Washington University, Dr. Duke became a tenured professor at Washington, D.C.'s Trinity University. Like many of our school's faculty, though, she quickly got bit by the Washington bug, and she went into federal service, first in the Office of Personnel Management, then with the Health and Human Services, where she quickly developed a reputation for effective reform management. In her most recent 3 positions, she served as Deputy Assistant Secretary for Administration for Children and Families, served as Administrator of the Health Resources and Services Administration, and then overhauled the business processes and human resources of the Food and Drug Administration. Along the way, Dr. Duke has received numerous honors, in both her federal and academic careers. Perhaps the most prestigious is the Presidential Rank Award for Distinguished Executives, the highest award available for career members of the Career Executives Senior Executive Service. She has also won teaching honors, including this very same honor back in 2011. The graduates seem to have a proclivity for Dr. Duke. Betty, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for that kind introduction, Dinor. And to the class of 15, thank you so much for including me in your ceremony. As I looked at you coming in today, my heart just exploded. I'm just so thrilled that you're starting another chapter of your wonderful story. I actually have written 4 sets of remarks for you today. I will only deliver one. I decided to offer this set of thoughts because I hoped that it would serve as useful reminders for stuff you already know from your classes and your rich experience. One of the important things that I've emphasized in my teaching is the idea of working with people. As part of that idea, I've stressed working in teams because, as you know from your experience, that's the way work gets done today. It's not so much about managing as it is about leading people to facilitate mission accomplishment. People are your most important resource, much more important than money, even though we all argue we need more of those beautiful bucks. Often what you really need is for the right people to play nicely in your sandbox. And what I mean by that is for them to give you their all to achieve objectives beyond their own self-interest, because you have allowed them to see and to own a greater good. No matter how low you are on the bureaucratic totem pole, been there, done that, started out as a GS-12 Step 6, or how high you are, even at the very top, you need to be part of good working relationships, be it in government, be it in corporate life, be it in nonprofits. And it has a lot to do with understanding the multiple roles that have to get played in teams. It especially means understanding correctly one of the most misunderstood roles, namely leadership. In some places, leaders are defined as those with the biggest mouths and the loudest roars. If you land there, depart quickly. In reality, leadership, when it's real leadership, is often that quiet leadership that understands what roles really need to be in teams and provides clear direction and allows others to exercise their formal and informal expertise. It's the one that gives the credit to others and takes satisfaction from a group success. And amazingly, and believe it or not, I know it's true, this leadership practice ultimately does get recognized. And with that recognition can come big career success. Along the way, understanding your own strengths and weaknesses, and being a master of yourself, and appreciating what others have to contribute are all arts that need to be honed during your career. I once had a boss, and you knew I'd have to have one story for you, right? I once had a boss who said to me, "I hired you for your best, not for yes." He told our whole organization that when he or someone else put an idea on the table, that he wanted us all to be part of a lively discussion with honesty and a commitment to the best. But when a decision had to be made, and he was the owner of the company, and ultimately that duty fell to him, he hoped that we would support his decisions. He lived by that. He ran the company that way. I think he's a great example of a really great boss. You're going to be great bosses. My bottom line is this. You're entering a fast-moving, ever-changing world. We're solving wicked problems, leading change, and fostering innovation are what society seeks from you. And we're embracing those challenges with intellectual curiosity, professional skill, a demanding sense of urgency, and a huge amount of personal gusto will be the keys to your survival as well as the keys to your success. We at the School of Public Policy have started you in that direction, and I hope you'll continue to work at that with study and creativity throughout your career. I wish for each of you personally what I've found in my life, the joy of work that's worth doing, of doing work that you think is important, that matters to you, and friends and loved ones to share your quests. In other words, I wish for you a supremely wonderful life of accomplishment and love. Thank you so much.
So far this morning, we've already heard about leadership, love, and aliens. It really is true, a policy degree requires versatility. Many of our graduates have been the recipients of special awards or honors. They have distinguished themselves during their tenure at the school as public leaders, activists, and scholars. First, I am delighted to honor the graduates who received named fellowship awards during their tenure at the school. The names of the fellowships appear on the back page of your program. Let me ask all of the graduates who have received a named fellowship to stand up so we can recognize and honor you. And for those of you who are checking to see if you received a named scholarship, it's too late. Now, Professor Travis St. Clair will celebrate the graduates who have been inducted into the Pi Alpha Alpha National Honor Society. Professor St. Clair received his PhD in public policy from the George Washington University. As an assistant professor in the School of Public Policy, he teaches courses on public finance and financial management and conducts research on state, local, and national government finance, with an emphasis on fiscal institutions, pensions, public pensions, and governmental budgeting and accounting. Professor St. Clair.
The Pi Alpha Alpha National Honor Society encourages and recognizes outstanding scholarship and accomplishment in public policy and administration education, as well as integrity, professionalism, and effective performance in the conduct of government and related public service activities. Only students and graduates meeting the highest academic standards are invited into Pi Alpha Alpha. I'm delighted to recognize the students from this year's Maryland School of Public Policy graduating class who have been so honored. When I read your name, please stand up and remain standing until each name has been announced. Please hold your applause until then. The Pi Alpha Alpha Honor Society inductees among this year's graduates are Sarah Alonso, Tanya De Sousa, Tyler Glaze, Catherine Haynes, Jordan Harriman, Elisha Henry, Kate Konetsky, Rachel Lamb, Mao Shaoli, Sina Modares, Joseph Oden, Andrew Reichart, Joanna Suriani, and Peter Tierney. Congratulations to the inductees.
Thank you. Professor Philip Swagel will now present the Presidential Management Fellowship recipient. Dr. Swagel is a professor of international economic policy in the School of Public Policy. Before coming to the school, Professor Swagel served in a variety of high-level federal positions, including as Assistant Secretary for Economic Policy at the Treasury Department and as Chief of Staff and Senior Economist at the White House Council of Economic Advisors. Professor Swagel.
Good. Thanks very much. As Dean Orr just said, I teach a class in international economics that about half of the students have taken. So they're probably worried that I'm going to ask them about the effect of this morning's data on the euro. But I could, but it's not what I'm here for. So I'm here to recognize some of our students who have been selected to be Presidential Management Fellows. And the PMF, the Presidential Management Fellows Program, was established in 1977 by executive order. And the idea is to attract to federal service outstanding individuals from a wide variety of academic disciplines who are particularly skilled in analysis and management of public policies and programs. And this is a very highly competitive national process to select the fellows. And I've worked with several of them, both at the White House and at the Treasury Department, and it's really extraordinary. And just as a reflection of the extraordinary nature of the students who come here to the school, this year's class of the PMF Fellows have 4 of our students. So we have 4 Presidential Management Fellows. Now 3 of them, my understanding, is graduated last semester. So we have 1 here today, and that's Gilda Sofia Martinez. So, thanks for your service, and we're really proud.
Announcing this year's Excellence in Scholarship Award is Professor Angela Bees. Professor Bees is an endowed associate professor of global philanthropy and nonprofit leadership at the School of Public Policy. Her research interests include comparative nonprofit and NGO regulation, accountability and governance, the emerging role of philanthropy in China, nonprofit capacity building, and nonprofits and disasters. Professor Bees.
Hello. Each year, we like to recognize the graduates in the Master of Public Policy program who managed to get through a very challenging and diverse curriculum with the very highest academic performance among their talented peers. The Master of Public Policy graduates whose academic performance was the very highest in this year's talented class are Benjamin Alexandro, and Paul Massaro. Congratulations.
It is now my great pleasure to announce today's commencement speaker. When a dean thinks about the first commencement speaker on his or her watch, he wants to make it count. So I thought hard about what kind of speaker we should have as our commencement speaker today. But it didn't take me long to settle on who it should be. Dr. Judith Rodin is a pioneer in higher education, philanthropy, and the world of policy. She embodies sustainability thinking and outcomes. She is the border crosser that I exhorted the graduates to be, and she is nothing if not bold. Dr. Rodin currently serves as the president of the Rockefeller Foundation, one of the world's leading philanthropic organizations. While at the helm, she has turned a venerable institution into a dynamic and innovative one. She has been a pioneer and innovator throughout her career, and was the first woman named to lead an Ivy League institution as president of the University of Pennsylvania, and the first woman to serve as president of the Rockefeller Foundation. Dr. Roden has a publications record to make any academics envious. Everybody, take note. And her most recent book on resilience literally defines the field, something she has done many times before. But it is her personal qualities that I want to highlight. Dr. Roden is a visionary. She picks the right issues way ahead of the curve. Green revolution in Africa, impact investing, resilience. It's a very long list. She is an innovator, introducing new ideas and conceptual frameworks to communities that need them desperately. And she has literally transformed every institution that she has touched. She is a leader. She takes tough decisions and moves things forward. I witnessed this in one case, the case of maternal and child health. While at the United Nations, I had to build an eminent persons group from around the globe to see how we could perform better to prevent maternal deaths and child deaths. Dr. Roden gave the group an intellectual foundation to build on, creative ideas, and resources, human, financial, and political, to make it happen. 5 years on, the Every Woman, Every Child initiative that she helped to build is an unstoppable coalition of countries, companies, philanthropies, academics, and activists who have raised over $40 billion, billion with a B, for the cause, and literally bent the curve on maternal and child death. What we are told in policy schools is impossible. She did it, and we did it. But I think at this point, you want to hear from Dr. Roden. May I introduce Dr. Judith Roden.
Good afternoon. And Dianor, thank you for that warm introduction, and congratulations to you on finishing your freshman year as dean. It's actually been a thrill for me to watch you lead this institution, and I hope you're enjoying academia as much as I did. Let me also recognize your predecessor, who isn't here, on leave, Professor Don Kettle, whom I hired at the University of Pennsylvania and had the great pleasure of working with. I would say this school has a great knack for picking deans. Class of 2015, thank you so much for the honor of sharing this special day with you. It's wonderful to be in College Park today and be with your appropriately beaming families and friends and loved ones. I see a lot of proud faces out there. And what a beautiful concert hall this is. I understand that in the last few days, this stage at the Clarice has been graced by a philharmonic, a symphony orchestra, and even the president's own U.S. Marine Band. The good news for all of you is that I won't be singing or playing an instrument today. The truth is, I'd be afraid to invite the kind of reaction that George Bernard Shaw once memorably gave. The famous playwright was listening to a particularly mediocre orchestra when the conductor recognized Shaw in the audience and asked him what he would like them to play next. Shaw replied, "Dominoes." But standing in this gorgeous hall that's so often filled with beautiful song, I'm reminded of another line by another writer, Khalil Gibran. In fact, this university has a chair endowed in his name. Gibran wrote a collection of poems called The Prophet that was enormously popular the year I graduated from college. I know what you're thinking, and no, despite how very long ago that might have been, the Gibran Chair is not part of the ancient history department. The passage of his that struck me and has really stayed with me all these years is one I often think about at ceremonies like this, because it's about farewells and future reunions. Gibran wrote, "If in the twilight of memory we should meet once more, we shall speak together again, and you shall sing to me a deeper song." Graduates, you will reconnect in future years, and when you do, you will share with one another even more thoughtful ideas, informed by new experiences. You will sing to one another even deeper songs. I know that this is not your first degree or first graduation, and for some it won't be your last, but I believe that today's might be the most important. After all, you came to College Park with a thirst for solving problems and a faith in public policy's ability to do that. The master's degrees and the doctorates that you're receiving today, the fruits of years of focused study, reflect a commitment deep inside you to fix what's broken. I'm grateful for that. You give me hope. Because if there's anything that's broken, if there's anything that calls urgently for your expertise, your creativity, and your foresight, it is the way we produce public policy today. And I'm not just talking about what's broken a half an hour south of here, in the gridlock of Capitol Hill. I'm also talking about what's broken a half an hour north of here, in the neighborhoods of Baltimore. What menaces our society far more than craven opportunists is the fact that too many are still left craving opportunity. And what Baltimore has reminded the world in the last month is that this is where public policy is failing. The late and I know greatly missed Dr. John Steinbrunner drew on his work here in cognitive psychology to explore how policymakers make decisions in the face of uncertainty. He knew that policies that led to both conflict and collaboration were at their core about interpersonal relations. And public policy, like we're seeing today in the debate about Baltimore, follows human nature in that it is often, too often, reactive. Of course, we need our policies and our policymakers to be responsive to the public. But there is a difference between being responsive and being reactive. What we need from you, in whatever realm of public policy you pursue, are ideas that are proactive and predictive. That's what Baltimore has taught us, and not only here. It's what we learned in Ferguson, in Oakland, in Paris, and on throughout the world. Often it takes a shock, such as the death of a young African-American man in the custody of the police, or an outbreak of a disease like Ebola that kills thousands and brings entire nations to their knees, or the devastation after 2 deadly earthquakes in Nepal. When these singular events happen, and they are really coming with increasing frequency and force, they reveal long-ignored structural flaws, many of which are derived from flawed or missing policies. And if we're paying attention, we'll notice that those fault lines often foretell the challenges of the future. So how then can policy stay one step ahead of the next crisis? But more than that, how can good policy prevent disruptions from becoming disasters? How can it improve opportunity for more people in more places? I believe there are 2 ways to do that: by building greater resilience and by building more inclusive economies. And I believe that in order to get there, you, the next generation of policy thinkers, need to ask yourselves 4 key questions to stay ahead of the curve. The first is this: ask yourself, in a diverse, changing, and complex world, does this policy promote and enable greater inclusion? The tragic events in Baltimore, in Ferguson, in Oakland didn't create a problem in the United States. They merely exposed one, or rather several of them. A fellow Maryland student, sophomore Max Ahn, wrote in the Diamondback this month that these recent riots challenged, in his words, generations of systemic racism, inescapable cycles of poverty, and the inequity in our modern justice system. I think Max nailed it. What we see in too many American cities reveals the festering sores of the underbelly of American society, sores of unequal access to opportunity that surely threaten our future as a democracy. But if we address only the immediate issues of race or crime or policing, we are losing a critical opportunity to reimagine more broadly our cities, our communities, indeed our country for the 21st century. It is no coincidence, for example, that here and throughout the world, health, income, and mobility are highly correlated. These are the kinds of problems we can see long before a young man dies in police custody. And if they are problems we can see, then they are problems you can fix. This isn't a new challenge here. As we approach the 10th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina, we're reminded that the story of New Orleans wasn't just about a storm. It was about the stability or instability of a society. Behind the levees were poor policies, poor people, and poorly designed systems, a lack of jobs, and a lack of leadership. When the levees broke, those problems floated to the surface. Like Baltimore, they couldn't be ignored any longer. After the floods, thousands fled. But today, thousands are flocking back to a renewed New Orleans, a city that's taking care to build in a more resilient and inclusive way, especially for the communities historically denied opportunity. After the floods and devastation, New Orleans created a policy framework, a new one, that allowed it to transform its public education system, to diversify its economy, and to re-engineer its neighborhoods. Today, it is reemerging as a great American city. Don't get me wrong, New Orleans still has a lot of work to do, but it's proving that building resilience is not about building back the way we were before. We can't restore what made us vulnerable in the first place. We need policies that help us build back better, not just our physical infrastructure, but always our economic and our social foundations as well. Let me give you another example from another part of the world, of a city that's already reaping the dividends of policies that focused on producing social cohesion. Medellin, Colombia used to be synonymous with drugs, poverty, and crime. For decades, its policies were all about policing and punishment. But a new mayor and a new focus on innovation and collaboration has led to a policy approach that prioritized economic development and social inclusion. These policies connected the poorest and most vulnerable communities which were isolated in the hillside slums above town, isolated from the valley below, and it connected them to the valley, which was the economic and social core of the city. How did they do that? In this poor city with an average annual temperature of around 72 degrees, they built gondolas like the ones you'd see in a fancy ski town. Then they built escalators into the steepest hillsides to reach the people, the most disconnected people, that even the gondolas couldn't reach. And at the transit stops that dotted this new transportation system, they built health clinics and daycare centers. This new system became the connective tissue that brought people together, that integrated an economy and a society. The results speak for themselves. In 10 years, the former murder capital of the world has seen its crime rate drop 90%. And today it's home to a massive tourism boom. It all happened because policymakers started by asking the question, are there new policy approaches that would promote inclusion and do it in a different way? But here's the catch. Before they could begin, policymakers in Medellin had to fully understand what was holding the city back. What was the real root cause of the problem? Only then could they create transformative policies. And that's the second question that good forward-thinking public policy must answer. How can we make sure we are fully aware of the problems and then solve them together in a more integrated, holistic way? It's a simple concept. Of course, you have to know what's wrong before you can fix it. It might sound obvious, but it's actually harder than it sounds, because the answer can change day to day or year to year. Today, technology makes a lot of things simpler, but the rate of change also makes the problems you're called upon to solve a lot more complex. So it can be quite difficult to stay on top of all the potential vulnerabilities, all the potential threats, whether they're natural or structural or social. Having and using accurate real-time information is key to awareness. More than ever, policymakers will need to benefit from tools and technologies that will help you make informed decisions, even as conditions change in real time. Let me give you one example. It comes from a startup in Silicon Valley called Planet Labs, which is launching sophisticated and inexpensive satellites into space that give us a new perspective into old problems. Traditional satellite technology only takes pictures of small areas of land, like you're kind of looking through a straw. But these satellites capture wide swaths of it, giving us glimpses of changes in the Earth's surface over time. And they've already made incredible discoveries that can help policymakers in important ways. They detected that an entire Brazilian neighborhood was secretly razed before the World Cup. They identified the areas in Africa most susceptible to Ebola as it was starting to spread. They predicted where a hurricane would hit, which allowed insurance checks to reach the residents in harm's way before the storm ever made landfill. So gathering information in new ways, increasing your awareness, is going to be an important part of the equation. But it's not worth much unless it's shared, and this is where integration comes in. I think I'm standing right now in a spot normally reserved for a conductor. And just like he or she would tell you, I believe we have to all be playing off the same song sheet. Local and federal, city and rural, private and public, global and local. Increasingly, the policies that will succeed are the ones that allow for information to flow freely from all stakeholders, from the UN Secretary General, who you saw last week, down to the local sheriff. It allows us to work from the same song sheet. The seamless exchange of information will indeed be a break from previous practice. It will require of you new ways of working together. It will require innovation. And that's the next question you must ask to stay ahead of the curve. How can we take the principles of innovation and apply them to policymaking? For too long, implementing public policy has been like launching satellites in the old way. By the time we've spent decades of research and billions of dollars to get that satellite into space, the technologies on the ground have already rendered it obsolete. What's true in the stratosphere is true in our capitals. 20th century approaches can no longer be used to solve 21st century problems. One of the ways the Rockefeller Foundation has been pursuing innovation is through labs that never lose sight of the end user. In the private sector, they're called R&D labs, where they try, for example, to build a self-driving car. But in the public sector, we call them social innovation labs, where we try to solve a pressing global problem. We bring together policymakers and stakeholders of all stripes, the usual suspects you'd expect, some strange bedfellows you wouldn't, but always with the end user, the citizen. And it's catching on. Google is getting in the game and opening its first government innovation labs this summer. They'll work with policy leaders in 2 communities in the Bay Area and try to come up with innovative policy solutions for problems like economic development and emergency preparedness. The novel approach in these labs is that they begin with the beneficiaries, and they allow policies to be designed around their needs, their motivations, and their circumstances, rather than top-down policies that might look good on paper, but may be tone-deaf to real people. Now, you all know it's not enough just to design smart policies on paper. Of course you know that they have to work in practice. But sometimes, I argue, that's not enough. People have to feel that they're working. So the fourth and final question a successful public policy must answer is, how is it perceived by real people? It's not enough anymore to see data that show increases in life expectancy, for example. We have to make sure that the people who are living longer are feeling the quality of those years. It's not enough if the numbers eventually say our criminal justice systems are reducing crime without also asking, will minorities and young people feel safer, or just their older white neighbors? Will everyone feel that his or her life matters? Graduates, when you leave here, you are going to lead revolutions in so many different areas of public policy: environment and energy, international development and international security, public and private sector. You'll lead at local, national, regional, and global levels. But what the policies you create will need to have in common is that they must promote inclusion. They must increase awareness and share information through greater integration. People must feel that they improve their daily lives. And above all, they must be more predictive than reactive. Think of the major problems that policymakers have been asked to solve in recent years: too few jobs, too many barriers to healthcare, climate vulnerabilities that rise with temperatures and sea levels, tensions that drive terrorism, and threats that drive us to war. But in a cycle in which we're often answering today's challenges tomorrow, this norm simply doesn't work. We have to answer tomorrow's challenges today. It's true that no one gets credit for averting disasters. If you follow this path, your biggest victories might not make headlines, but you'll be keeping bad news off the front pages. We've gotten very good at recognizing those who solve problems. I believe we must get better at celebrating the leaders who predict, preempt, and prevent those problems. And I, for one, hope deeply that you will be those leaders. You must be the ones who will sing a different, deeper song, a song that will bring much-needed harmony to the discordant days ahead. Thanks to you, we can do more than fix what needs fixing. We can, as Hemingway wrote, be stronger at the broken places. Congratulations, class of 2015. I commend to you our future. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Roden, for those inspiring words, but even more for modeling it. You didn't just tell us to do it, you're actually doing it. So thank you for setting the example for our students. I have a feeling you'll be seeing a lot of them in the future in exactly the areas that you are pioneering. So thank you. We wanted to leave the president of the Rockefeller Foundation, a humble little Chesapeake turtle, who doesn't look so humble, and a gift basket for this wonderful commencement address. Thank you.
So much. Thank you.
And now, the moment you have been waiting for, graduation. We begin with the students who will be receiving the university's highest degree, the Doctor of Philosophy. To introduce our PhD graduates, let me introduce the director of our doctoral program, Professor Anand Patwardhan. Professor Patwardhan earned his own PhD from Carnegie Mellon University. He specializes in strategies to understand and respond to changes in the climate. He is an expert in resilience and examines clean technology as well as the broader issues of science, technology, and innovation policy. He is an international leader in the United Nations efforts to understand climate change. Professor Patwardhan.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon. It is a great pleasure to honor the 8 students who are graduating this year with their PhD in policy studies. And we are very fortunate to have 4 of them who are able to be with us today. The PhD degree marks the culmination of many years of work at the highest level of the field. Our PhD graduates will become your teachers in the future, researchers in think tanks, and really the thought leaders who will help us articulate, understand, and think about solutions to policy challenges of today and tomorrow. Today's first PhD graduate is Gokul Chandramouli Iyer. Gokul's dissertation is titled Low Carbon Technologies and Climate Change Mitigation Policy in an Imperfect World. His dissertation deals with an important aspect of one of today's defining policy problems, the transition to a low-carbon world. His work looks at some of the social, behavioral, and institutional factors that are likely to influence the deployment of low-carbon technologies, and it emphasizes the importance of capacity building and fostering international cooperation to accelerate the sorely needed transition to a low-carbon world. We are very fortunate that Gokul has chosen to move not very far from here. He will be taking up a position at the Joint Global Change Research Institute, which is a partnership between the University of Maryland and the Pacific Northwest National Laboratories. Gokul's dissertation chair was Professor Nate Hultman, and I would like to request him to do the honors of hooding the graduate. Thank you. Our next graduate's work deals with exactly the 4th of the questions that Dr. Rodin just posed, the question of subjective well-being. Kendall Leon Swenson dissertation is titled Essays on the Relationship Between Income and Life Satisfaction in the United States. And his dissertation analyzes the relationship between income and life satisfaction in the US in the context of social welfare programs and economic mobility. Kendall is working as an economist at the Office of the Assistant Secretary for Planning and Evaluation at the US Department of Health and Human Services. Kendall's dissertation chair was Professor Carol Graham, who unfortunately is not able to be with us today. So I would like to request Professor Chris Foreman to kindly do the honor of hooding the graduate. Thank you. Congratulations. Our next graduate's work emphasizes the importance of stakeholder participation to ensure success in policy. Mary Claire Vasquez Duran's dissertation is titled Participatory Budgeting in the Dominican Republic, Implications for Agency, Democracy, and Development. Her dissertation examines participatory budgeting as an important kind of citizen participation in the Dominican Republic and the implications of this practice for agency, democracy, and development. Her work provides a deeper understanding and assessment of how participatory budgeting works and how it impacts the lives of individuals and communities. Mary Claire's dissertation was co-chaired by Professor Dave Crocker and Professor Carol Graham. I'd like to request Professor Crocker to kindly do the honor of hooding the graduate. Our final graduate today is Sean Susan Zhu, whose work deals with another defining policy challenge today, that the rise of China as a global power. By analyzing the negotiations leading to the entry of China into the World Trade Organization, she's provided some key insights into Chinese decision-making processes, and in particular on the interaction of formal and informal policymaking entities at several bureaucratic levels, thus providing an illuminating contrast with US practices. Susan's dissertation was chaired by Professor Mac Dessler, and I'd like to request him to kindly put the graduate. Need some adjustment. My congratulations to all of the PhD graduates. Thank you very much.
Congratulations and well done to our newly minted PhD graduates. It is now an honor we will now honor our outstanding master's class of 2015. Will the master's class of 2015 please rise and approach the stage?
The candidates for the Master of Public Policy degree are Benjamin Thomas Alexandro, Sarah Ann Alonzo, Shanice Bamiro, Emily Kathleen Becker, Roberto Carlos Barrios, Shimuljosh Habtu Braha, Brendan Michael Butler, Rashid Kante, Neil Joseph Costello, Lee Stewart Courtney, Tanya Renee De Sosa, Samantha Durdock, Brandy Espinola, Roberto Esteves Mañasco, Mengyang Fan, Amy Fisher, Marcus Gaddy, Carista Lynn Gallick, Adden Martin Garcia, Tyler D. Glaze, Alice Catherine Goldberg, Luis Gonzalez, Catherine Ferris Haynes, Ashton Harp. Jordan Arthur Harriman. Yue He. Corey Lee Heeson. Roman Julius Hennig. Alicia Beth Henry. Sarah K. Higgins. Brianna Nicole January. Kelly Christine King. Catherine Ann Laffin. Rachel Lorraine Lamb. Maria Isabel Larenas. Jing Li. Yuansen Liao. Wo Liu. Yuhan Liu. Jillian Luckner. Beverly Luckett. Emily Malouf. Xiaoli Mao. Gilda Sofia Martinez. Arthur Paul Massaro III. Amanda Jenny McCullough. Irene Marie Masrobian. Olga Morales. Patricia Louise Mulaney Loss. Ankita Narayan. Dana Gable O'Rourke. Joseph Donahue Oden. Ryan William Ouimet. Shaylin Mackenzie Pack.
Emily Marie Guido.
Emily Marie Guido. Suhung Chin. Anusha Ramakrishnan. Andrew Robert Reichert. Hatapruk Arkaznuam. Isaac Margolin Rotman. Brittany Ryan. Rebecca Lee Sherpels. Jack Scholl. Thor Alexander Schumacher. Brandon W. Sellers. Susan Brooke Schuler France. Kyle David Seifring. Maxwell Stammen. Lauren Maria Stark. Joanna B. Suriani. Ariel Constance Tebby. Vina Kirsten Thangavalu. Hernan Santiago Vizcarra. Jinpu Wang. Yushen Wang. Casey Westhoff. Bryn Woolacott. Ao Shu. Jingyi Zhang. Chaoying Zhao. Chong Zhou. Zili Zhou. Lin Lin Zhu. The candidates for the Master of Public Management degree are Alicia Arendt. Tiffany Ann Cooper. Jason Harris. Khalil Henry Kettering. Hong Li Liu. Emily Blakewood Plunke. Lisa Shaw. Moninder Town.
Now that you are officially graduated, here to welcome you to the school's alumni is Colin O'Loughlin. Mr. O'Loughlin graduated in 2011 with his MPP degree and a specialization in international security and economic policy. In just 4 short years, take note, graduates, in 4 years, he is now the senior associate at Avalier Health, a leading advisory company focused on healthcare business strategy. I am grateful that he has served on the board of the school's alumni chapter for 2 years. Mr. O'Loughlin.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Colin O'Loughlin, and on behalf of the School of Public Policy Alumni Board and alumni community, I want to say congratulations to the graduating class of 2015. You've undoubtedly worked hard for this moment and are deserving of all the recognition. So I, unlike the esteemed company here on stage, don't really have any wisdom to share with you. I don't. So, but that being said, I do want to share this one message with you all. Now is certainly a very exciting time in all of your lives. Now is your opportunity to pursue your passions and begin to create the ideal world that you want to be a part of. Your actions over the next several decades are going to help to actualize important concepts such as democracy, governance, development, security, just to name a few. Now is your opportunity to begin making the ideal into the real. And so, on behalf of School of Public Policy alum, we hope that as you're constructing this ideal world that you want to be a part of, we hope that a strong SPP alumni community will be part of that world. And this goal can be very easily achieved by coming to networking events, by using the alumni directory to reach out to past policy terps, and by just hanging out with the friends that you've been studying with and hanging out with for the last couple of years. Your actions will help to realize one more very important concept, and that is community. So, congratulations, class of 2015, and welcome to the alumni community.
Okay, there is officially one last step before you become alumni. And to do that, I ask Amy Fisher to please come and lead your peers one last time.
Fellow graduates, please stand. And on the count of 3, we're going to move our tassels from the right to the left. 1, 2, 3, now. Congratulations, y'all.
Congratulations, graduates. You are now alumni, and thank you, Madam President, for your leadership one last time here. This concludes our formal ceremony, and graduates, will you please assemble on the staircase outside so we can get a class picture before we go? And family and friends, please remain seated while the graduates and the platform party process, and then we invite all of you to a reception just next door at the Riggs Alumni Center, just across the street and a little bit to the right. So we will see you all there. Congratulations, you make us proud, Policy Terps.